look at the Articles of Confederation. This government lasted in the United States from 1776 to about 1781 through the mid 1780s until it was replaced with the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation was the name of the first government of the United States. This means it came before the U.S. Constitution. It had been started back in 1776 during the American Revolution and finally approved by all the states in 1781. The Articles were weak on purpose. The Founding Fathers wanted to make them weak. Americans were afraid of a strong national government. After all, they were fighting a war against a king and a parliament that they deemed tyrannical and too powerful. The American Revolution was literally fought on principles of freedom from oppression. This is why the founders created a weak government. Issues with the Articles. The national government under the Articles did not have the power to tax or enforce laws. So you have a government that can make laws, but not enforce them. The national government did not have the power to wage war. So without the power to tax, the government could not afford a standing military. The government could also issue money, but the states didn't have to use it. The states had their own money. They had their own currency. So think about those 13 colonies. You had Massachusetts money. You had a completely different type of money in Pennsylvania, and the two were not interchangeable. So a person traveling from Boston to Philadelphia had very little ways of paying for anything. Since the national government could not tax, and the national money was worthless, debt became a huge problem. Debt is when you owe people money, and the new government, after the United States won at Yorktown, had a debt problem. You see, soldiers who had fought in the Revolutionary War had not been paid. They were promised they would be paid for their service. Most of these soldiers were farmers. They owed money. Their mortgages, their food bought on credit. They owed money to vendors who had supported them during the war, just as they supported the new government during the war. So these soldiers needed to be paid, and the government needed to find a way to make it happen. The Articles did have some strengths. Congress was given the power to declare war. They could not wage war because they had no military to do so, but they could declare war. They could declare peace. They could sign treaties. They could borrow money, which means they could rack up more debt. They could establish an army and a navy, but they had no way to pay them. And they could organize a post office. Obviously, the Articles had many, many weaknesses. There's no chief executive, meaning no president. There was no national court system, what we today call our judicial branch. They could not draft soldiers into the military. They had no power to control interstate commerce. In other words, all 13 colonies are now states having completely different money. There was no way to control that. They could make a treaty, but they can't enforce it. They can't collect taxes. They couldn't even pass laws. It required a 2/3 vote in their congressional branch to pass laws. That's really hard to get to 2/3. There's no national currency. The articles were difficult to add amendments to. And in order to change anything in the articles, you needed a unanimous, or everybody had to vote for it. If one person voted against that change or adding an amendment, you couldn't add that amendment. So in conclusion, the Founding Fathers chose the Confederation plan because they were scared of a strong central government. They had just left what they called tyranny. They didn't want to go back to tyranny. They wanted what they considered their God-given rights. Also in conclusion, the Founding Fathers believed the Articles needed to be replaced by the Constitution. The nation needed to function as one united country and not 13 small, unorganized nations. So this is ultimately why the Articles of Confederation would fail and be replaced by the U.S. Constitution.